Imagine a chessboard where every move is a bluff, every pawn a promise, and the stakes are nothing less than peace in a war-torn corner of the world. Now picture Vladimir Putin smirking across the table, sliding a ceasefire offer toward Donald Trump, a tantalizing truce in the Black Sea that could halt the relentless grind of Russia's war against Ukraine. It sounds like a breakthrough, a rare flicker of hope after years of bloodshed. But here's the catch. Just as the world leans in to inspect the deal, Putin pulls back, dangling new conditions like a magician, revealing the trick was never real. This isn't a ceasefire, it's a gambit. And as the Trump administration trumpets its diplomatic win, Ukraine braces for betrayal, history whispers warnings, and the Kremlin tightens its grip on a strategy that's as old as Putin's playbook: promise. Peace, deliver pressure. Welcome to the latest chapter in a saga where trust is the rarest currency of all. On March 27, 2025, the world is buzzing with news of a ceasefire deal between Russia and Ukraine, brokered in the sun-scorched conference rooms of Saudi Arabia. The Trump administration, eager to flex its diplomatic muscle, announced that both nations had agreed to pause the fighting in the Black Sea, a critical waterway that's been a lifeline for trade and a battleground for dominance since Russia's invasion began in 2022. The announcement came with fanfare, a chance to secure safe navigation, protect commercial vessels, and reopen trade routes choked by war. Grain exports, vital to both Ukrainian and Russian economies and to global food security, could flow again. For a moment, it felt like progress. The White House painted it as a step toward durable and lasting peace, a phrase that rolled off the tongue with the optimism of a campaign promise. But the ink wasn't dry before the Kremlin threw a curveball. The deal, it turns out, wasn't a done deal. Russia's leadership, under Putin's iron hand, declared that the ceasefire would only proceed if a laundry list of conditions were met, conditions that smell more like blackmail than negotiation. Suddenly, what looked like a diplomatic coup for Trump morphed into a high-stakes test of wills, with Putin holding the cards and the world watching to see who blinks first. The Saudi summit, a fragile foundation. The seeds of the ceasefire were planted in Saudi Arabia, where expert groups representing Trump and Putin huddled for what the White House called bilateral technical talks. These weren't the grand summits of yesteryear, with flags and photo ops, but a gritty, nuts-and-bolts effort to hammer out a truce in the Black Sea. The agenda was clear: stop the fighting that's turned the waterway into a militarized chokehold, ensure safe passage for ships, and maybe, just maybe, lay the groundwork for something bigger. The BBC broke the story on March 25th, reporting that Russia and Ukraine had agreed to a naval ceasefire, a move that seemed to signal a rare alignment of interests. For the U.S., the priorities were practical and pressing. Securing safe navigation meant protecting commercial vessels from the crossfire, vessels that Putin's Navy has targeted with impunity in the past. Eliminating the use of force against these ships for military gain was a non-negotiable, as was reopening trade routes that could ease the economic strangulation felt by both nations. The talks even revisited a previous ceasefire Putin had promised, one aimed at sparing energy infrastructure, a promise he'd broken faster than you can say Moscow. Still, the Saudi meeting ended on a high note, with the U.S. claiming all parties, itself, Ukraine, and Russia, were working toward peace. The White House even dangled the carrot of economic revival, suggesting the ceasefire could unlock billions in grain exports, a lifeline for farmers and a boon for global markets. But beneath the optimism, cracks were already forming. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, a man who's seen more broken promises than most, didn't mince words. He praised the U.S. for holding the right meetings and taking the right steps, but his tone was laced with caution. "It's too early to say that it will work," he said, a diplomatic way of saying he's not holding his breath. Zelensky's been burned before, by Putin, by ceasefires, by the mirage of peace. And his skepticism is a shield forged in the fires of war. "No one can accuse Ukraine of not moving towards a sustainable peace after this," he added, a subtle jab at Russia's track record. Between the lines, his message was unmistakable. Putin's word is as reliable as a house of cards in a storm. Putin's play, blackmail in plain sight. No sooner had Zelensky voiced his doubts than Putin proved them prescient. The Kremlin's response to Trump's announcement was swift and calculated. The Black Sea ceasefire was contingent on more than just goodwill. Putin demanded sanctions relief, big, bold, economy-saving relief. He wants Russian banks reconnected to Swift Pay, the global financial network they were booted from in 2022. He wants restrictions lifted on Russian producers and exporters in the fertilizer and food trades. He wants commercial ships flying the Russian flag to sail freely again. In short, he wants the West to undo the punishing web of sanctions that's brought Russia's economy to its knees. All for a ceasefire he's unlikely to honor. The numbers tell the story of why Putin's so desperate. Since February 2022, when he launched his invasion of Ukraine, Russia has been hit with 21,692 sanctions from the US, Europe, Asia, and beyond. That's on top of 2,619 already in place, making Russia the most sanctioned country on earth. Iran, in second place, trails with just 5,175. Over 8,000 of these target Russian entities like banks and companies, slashing economic growth by 5% in the first 2 years of the war, according to U.S. estimates. International trade has withered, costing Putin billions he'd rather pour into his war machine. The Black Sea deal, in his eyes, isn't about peace. It's about prying open the vault. This isn't negotiation, it's extortion. Putin's betting on Trump's eagerness to claim a win, playing on the U.S. president's boasts that he could end the war in 24 hours, a quip Trump later called sarcastic, but one that reveals his hunger to be the peacemaker. The Russian leader's strategy is simple: dangle the ceasefire, yank it back, and demand concessions that prop up Russia's faltering economy without committing to end the war. If Trump says no, Putin gets a propaganda victory. I tried. They didn't. If Trump says yes, Russia gets a cash infusion to keep the invasion rolling. Either way, Putin wins, and the Black Sea truce becomes a footnote. A history of broken promises. If this feels familiar, it's because we've seen this movie before, and it doesn't end well. Putin's track record on ceasefires is a graveyard of broken promises, stretching back over a decade. Take the 2022 Black Sea grain deal, a pact that mirrored this latest proposal. It promised safe passage for Ukraine's commercial ships, ensuring grain reached global markets. For a while, it worked. 120 days, then extensions, until Putin pulled the plug in July 2023, claiming Russia's own exports were stymied. The EU reality: his warships needed the sea clear, and the deal was expendable. Fast forward to March 2025, and he's at it again, this time with sanctions as the prize. Or consider the energy infrastructure ceasefire he pitched to Trump in a March 18th phone call, just 9 days before this Black Sea drama. Putin promised an immediate halt to attacks on Ukraine's energy grid if Ukraine reciprocated. Both sides had skin in the game. Ukraine's losses hit $14.6 billion by February 2025, while Russia's oil refineries took a 17% hit from Ukrainian drones. It sounded reasonable. Ukraine agreed. Hours later, 40 Russian drones swarmed Ukrainian targets, shattering the deal before it began. Zelensky called it what it was: a rejection of peace by Putin's own hand. Go back further, and the pattern deepens. Since 2014, when Putin first flexed his muscles in Ukraine, he's brokered and broken 25 peace agreements, from the Minsk Accords to holiday truces. The Minsk deals, signed in 2014 and 2015, promised withdrawals and ceasefires. Russian artillery fired within days, sometimes hours. Zelensky's own peace talks with Putin in 2019 yielded nothing but more fighting. The lesson is clear: Putin's promises are a means to an end, not an end in themselves. The Black Sea ceasefire is just the latest page in a playbook he's perfected. Offer peace, extract concessions, then renege. Zelensky and Trump, seeing through the smoke. Ukraine's leadership isn't fooled. Zelensky's guarded optimism is a polite mask for grim realism. He's seen Putin's game too many times. His defense minister, Rustem Umerov, put it blunter: if Russian warships stray too far east in the Black Sea, Ukraine will treat it as a threat and respond in self-defense. The message? We're ready for you to break this, Vladimir, and we're not waiting to find out. Ukraine's accusations of Russian deceit, tying the ceasefire to sanctions, only sharpen the point. Trump, for his part, seems to be catching on. When pressed by reporters about Putin's demands, he was measured. They will be looking at them, and we're thinking about all of them right now. No commitments, just contemplation. But in a Newsmax interview, He let slip a negotiator's insight. It could be that they're dragging their feet. I've done it over the years. Maybe I don't want to do it quite. I'm not sure. It's Trump, the dealmaker, talking, recognizing a stall when he sees one. He knows Putin's playing for more. Sanctions relief today, maybe more tomorrow, and he's not biting yet. The stakes, peace or ploy. So where does this leave us? Putin's pushing a ceasefire he's poised to abandon, using it as leverage to ease the sanctions strangling Russia's economy. The Black Sea, once a trump card for his navy, is now a bargaining chip. His fleet's been battered, a third of it sunk or sidelined by Ukraine's relentless drones and missiles. He's got little to lose by pausing there, but everything to gain if the West blinks. For Ukraine, it's a lifeline they can't trust. For Trump, it's a legacy-defining test of resolve. The sanctions are the real prize. Lifting them could flood Russia with cash, propping up an economy that's been juiced by war spending, but is nearing exhaustion. Without them, Putin's war machine grinds on, but at a cost his people are starting to feel. Jobs are scarce. Returning soldiers loom as a social time bomb, and the illusion of victory wears thin. He needs this ceasefire to look like a win, even if it's just a mirage. Zelensky knows Putin's endgame isn't peace, it's domination. Ukraine's sovereignty is the root of this war, a truth Putin denies with every claim that Russians and Ukrainians are one people. Trump, too, must see that caving too. Blackmail only emboldens a man who's broken every deal he's made. The question is whether Trump's deal-making instincts will hold firm or fold under the weight of Putin's gambit. What's next? As of March 27, 2025, the Black Sea ceasefire hangs in limbo, a tantalizing promise shadowed by doubt. Will Trump call Putin's bluff, holding the line on sanctions? Will Zelensky's warnings prove prophetic, with Russian warships testing Ukraine's resolve? Or will this deal, like so many before it, dissolve into the chaos of war? One thing's certain, in this game of trust, Putin's the wild card, and the world's watching to see who plays their hand best.